I had Fiat Spiders in the
Age
70s.
shouldn't be an issue.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm Chief Michael Henderson of the Seal Beach Police Department, and this will be the first meeting of the Citizen Council Parking Advisory Ad Hoc Committee. For the purposes of today's meeting, I'll be guiding the meeting until we reach the agenda item for nominations and appointment of chair and vice chair. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Chief. Mayor Moore,
Here.
Councilmember Kalmick,
Here.
City Manager Ingram. Here. Chief Henderson,
Here.
Committee Member Husting,
Here.
Committee Member McDaniel,
Here.
Committee Member Terry,
Here.
Committee Member Rathman,
Here.
Committee Member Wheeler,
Present.
Committee Member Janke,
Here.
and Julia Dixon, Parking Consultant.
Here.
Julie Dixon. All
Thank you.
present.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take oral communications. At this time, the members of the public may address the committee regarding the items on this Citizen Council Parking Advisory Ad Hoc Committee agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the committee cannot discuss or take action on any items not on the agenda unless authorized by law. Those members of the public wishing to speak are asked to come forward to the microphone, state their name for the record. All speakers will be limited to a period of 5 minutes. Speakers must address their comments only to the committee and not to any individual, member of the staff, or audience. Any documents for review should be presented to staff for distribution. And go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Nathan Steele. I live in District 5. I am on City Council here in Seal Beach, and I rise in support of the, do you have my, as an advocate of paid parking on Main Street. I use this quote simply because we need to realize that 70%, which is what the popular figure used to be. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Shall I start again? Nathan Steele, District 5, City Council member over here. I rise in support of paid parking on Main Street. I don't do it because I want to be the ghoulish guy that ruins our small town character, but I do it because we have a fiscal hole in our budget. That hole is, I'm going to spend my time here, 5 minutes is all I get. Number one, I'm going to talk about the $15 million cumulative deficit in our 5-year forecast. Number two, I'm going to talk about paid parking is good for business. It is not bad for business. It's rather counterintuitive, but paid parking is good for business. And number three, I'm going to talk about the survey that I recently did showing that a majority of Seal Beach supports paid parking on Main Street. See if I get this to work. There we go. There is in our 5-year forecast, this came to my attention in May of this year, a cumulative deficit over the next 5 years of $15,089,927. Will that be as reality turns out? No, it'll be some other number, but it is handwriting on the wall, and we need to get busy trying to fill that gap as soon as we possibly can. This means that we need to raise revenue where possible, and we need to cut costs where possible. So we're looking at increasing costs over the next 5 years of 7%. That's in our current budget, and revenue increasing 2%. Seal Beach is 97% built out. We don't have very many growth opportunities in Seal Beach, and so we need to somehow figure out where this $15 million is coming from. When I swore into office here and I talked to the people who came before me and my other council members here, our number one job as a city is to balance the budget. That is our number one job. We don't get the luxury of DC that we can write bonds and deficit spend year in and year out. We have to balance our budget every single year. So we have $15 million. The handwriting is on the wall. We need to do something, and that's why we're talking about paid parking. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. I'm sorry. Okay, paid parking is good for business. There is a popular conception that if we charge parking, people will stop coming to town. That has not been the experience of every other city on the planet that charges for parking. I am using the work that is done by a gentleman by the name of Donald Shoup, who wrote the seminal book called The High Cost of Free Parking. Donald Shoup is a PhD in economics from Harvard. He has been at UCLA in urban planning, and he is a parking guru. There are very few people on planet Earth that can keep up with Donald Shoup, for all I can tell. I studied this book, I studied his other book, and I've also looked at other authors. I've looked at the professional groups that deal with mobility and parking in California, in Orange County, and around the country. And I kept searching for somebody who would tell me that free parking is good for business. Free parking is not good for business. What happens is you get people coming into, well, free parking to begin with is not free. It costs the city something. And so and it also attracts the wrong kind of parkers. People coming to the beach, in our case, will park on Main Street, get their beach toys out of their car, toddle on down to the beach, and they will do their thing for a couple hours, send daddy back up to Main Street to move the car if they want to stay longer. And that's the kind of parkers that we get on Main Street. It's not customers. These people are not there to do business in the restaurants. These people are not there to buy stuff from stores on Main Street. These people are there to go to the beach. We get employees from other businesses parking on Main Street as well. So there's a whole mix of reasons why free parking is not the right price to charge for parking on our Main Street. I think free parking of itself keeps real shoppers and real customers away from downtown Seal Beach. It keeps them out. They turn left on Seal Beach Boulevard and go up to Rossmore because they know that Seal Beach and Main Street are going to be congested with parkers and traffic and all kinds of problems. So if we can charge the right price for parking on Main Street, that will open up space from people who would rather, they can go down to the beach lot and park.
30 seconds to wrap up.
All I get, Lord have mercy. Am I going the right way? Okay, poll results, and I could share this with everybody later on. I think it's going to be in this week's paper, if I'm not mistaken, maybe not, but it has been shared. If you can't read this very well, I apologize. This is strongly opposed was 71% in the March survey. In the August survey, that opposition melted down to 28%. In the March survey, 23% opposed, 19% in the August survey. And you see the support for paid parking on Main Street. The difference between
Your time has expired.
Hello, Joe. Good afternoon. My name is John Baker, former business owner on Main Street. I was there from 1980 to about 2002. I had a business. It was lucrative, but people say parking meters scare people away. They don't scare people away. They bring the best customers you can get. All I can say is that we've paid thousands and thousands of dollars for a consultant we don't need. We need parking meters. Plain and simple, parking meters move people. They come in, they do their business, they move on. And that's what we need in Seal Beach. And for years, we've fought this and fought this and fought this. Everybody said, no, we're going to scare people away. Well, we're not going to scare our customers away. They're going to come down here. But what scares them away when they can't park on Main Street because somebody's parked there and gone to the beach. If you put a meter on Main Street, I could never figure out why they put meters in the lot. People are going to come down here, well, I'm going to park free if I don't have to pay for that meter, and I'm going to park on Main Street. Why was that thinking? Who thought of that? That wasn't a very good thought. I served on these parking committees, as she can tell you. And she's been here for a lot of years as a consultant, but I'm sorry, we don't need a consultant. We need parking meters. And there are other solutions to our problems. And I know that some people wouldn't agree. I used to live in Long Beach many years ago, and they took some of the streets on down in the beach area or along near Cherry Avenue and those streets down there, and they put them one way on one street, diagonal parking on one side, parallel on the other side. It increased parking on the side streets. I suggested in a letter to the city, to the newspaper last week, that we do the same thing on 8th and 10th Street. Parallel park on one side, diagonal on the other. Well, I was running for city council. Poor mistake, because those people started screaming, "That's my parking spot. I can't give that away to somebody else." I said, "Park in your garage." "Oh, I can't do that." "Why not?" "Oh, you've made a sublet that garage out to somebody else." Well, we got to check that too. We got to get those people to use their garages and not use them as another residence. And that's what's happening here in town. Our code inspection officers aren't doing their job, aren't cleaning out those garages. Those people aren't able to park in their garages, and now they're claiming that the parking spot in front of their house is theirs. Well, we need to change that. We need to get out there and make sure those garages are empty, what they're supposed to be used for. Anyhow, I came here to say, you're going to be heard from me. I'll probably write another letter, and I will remark at every session you have, and I'll see if I like it or not. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peggy Lynch, and I'm a citizen of Seal Beach, and I am opposed to the paid parking on Main Street. My primary reason is we've got a beautiful Main Street, and I think that the parking meters are going to make it look junky. And I like the appearance of our little Mayberry town that we've got. So I'm very much against it. You already got paid parking, by the way. You've got down by the beach, 2 sides on the pier. You got the narrow lot that's across from Shell Shop, and then you've got up on Electric. You already have a lot of paid parking. And I don't buy it that everybody goes to the beach and parks on Main Street. When I see people go to the beach, they're using the paid lot. So I don't think I buy into that one. And the other thing is, when was this poll conducted? What were the questions? And who did they survey? It's very nebulous about the poll. I'd be curious to know more about the poll. And was it done by an independent company or someone in particular that had an opinion that they wanted to promote? And that's my main concern, and my associate that's with me, her concern is for the shop owners. How will it impact their business? I know one person said one thing, but there's other viewpoints to that as well. And I want to think if you've considered other sources of revenue other than parking to bring up our budget. It doesn't have to be parking that's going to junk up our neighborhood. There are other ways to make money, and you guys are smart, so I bet you can figure that out. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Kyle. Born and raised Seal Beach, been here 70 years. I've been on 2 parking commissions. This isn't a parking commission that we've done in the past. The city manager in the past would get business owners, business people. The property was well defined. This has been something under the sleeve that she almost put away so the citizens couldn't talk. Now, I was on the Main Street specific plan. I was one of the architects for it. The parking, the way Main Street was done by design. We did this with property owners, business owners. So don't listen to everything you're hearing. They're stacking this deck to the committee I'm talking to. I've never seen it in 70 years where a city manager, the chief of police, all these people, and the consultants stacked in here to convince one side of the story. Now, I've had over 400 and some employees on Main Street. I've created over $50 million in sales. My first job was on Main Street at 10 years old. I know Main Street. I know how the business community works. I know how it moves. It's like Rob, he has his coffee shop. You put meters in there, he's not going to get the guy that says, hey, I'm going to put 50 cents in to run in to get a cup of coffee. or he's going to get a $65 ticket. They're going to go to the places that have free parking. They're going to go over to the Starbucks. They're going to go over to Marina Pacifica. They're going to go to Marketplace. I really want this committee to open your eyes. What's going on here? They tried to deny me to be on this thing by representatives, by a council person that was voted in the office, and you have a city manager that got me eliminated. The district attorney's looking into it right now. There's issues here that are beyond what you know and what the history was. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants. And I'm not exaggerating. I've been on all the committees. I've been on all the Main Street specific plan. I have more knowledge of what went on here. Maybe John might have a little bit more, but not much. I think what we have is a really good system. People can come down after Labor Day. Like right now, you go down Main Street, you're going to have 18, 20 parking spaces wide open. We're at the beach here. When it's 110 degrees, we're going to get packed. We're a half a pie. The other half is the ocean. You've got to realize that the people that come down here are from Leisure World. They're coming down here from Rossmore. They're coming down from the Hill. They're local people. They're running in, getting coffee, getting baked goods. They're coming in and out. That's who our team, just because every other town has it, doesn't mean that's what makes us different. Realize, why do we like that? There is other ways of financing. I don't think the management at city manager's office has done a good job. How did we get here? We got big box stores out in Rossmore. You should be spending time to get somebody in there, get a tax base. Now, I have a business I took over. It's down on First Street. I'm paying 800% more rent. I have sold more in 1 month than the previous guy did the whole year. Tax base. Money in and the machines that are down there that they're trying to put on Main Street, the horrible experiences, especially the elderly, they don't work. They're not hard things. It just doesn't work. The anger that is there is unbelievable. We're trying to get sports for kids to go surfing and do this and do that and get the kids out of the house after all this. And now we want to put in all this expense. There's a combination of a million things. And I will sit with anybody here on this committee and go over it with you. I've got a lot of experience. They didn't want me on this committee. Reason why? I'm the opposite. I'm not a guy that's just going to say yes. I will sit there, I will think it out. This is no way. And when we did talk about it back in the day, the money that was going to be derived off the money, if we were going to do it, should have stayed on Main Street.
You have 30 seconds to wrap up.
I spent over $60,000 on Assembly Bill 1600 in lieu parking for the city of Seal Beach. Where's my money? Where'd it go? We got parking lots sitting over there by the Bank of America building that smart people would have sat there and go to the Bank of America and say, hey, I'll give you a tax write-off, a massive one. And we have money in this in lieu fund. Where is it? It
Your time
disappeared. It
has
goes to the general
expired.
fund. Thank you.
You know, Brian, if Walt was here, he'd say the same thing.
Any other speakers to address the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda to committee items. Now we'd like to move to introductions. We'll start to my left and move around the table. Please take a brief moment to introduce yourself to the community and the rest of the committee.
My name is Julie Dixon. I work with Dixon Resources Unlimited. I am a parking consultant. I've been engaged with the City of Seal Beach since about 2017, and I've really worked towards optimization of the current program and a lot of the transitions that you've seen over the last several years. And I work with cities and municipalities, focused primarily in California, but also all over the country.
Hello, my name is Matthew Terry. I'm a second generation Old Town Seal Beach resident. My family's been a part of this community for since the 60s. I've lived here my entire life, over on the one-way, splitting my time between 13th and 15th Street. Main Street, Seal Beach is kind of like a second home for me. So I'm heavily invested in ensuring that the outcome for this community is best for Main Street. I'm an architect, so I bring to this conversation an understanding of how parking affects the built environment and the way people experience places. But I also want to mention that you'll often find me walking around town with my wife and kids. So if you ever happen to spot me, please don't hesitate to share your opinion on the subject.
Hi, my name is Rob Janke. I've been involved in the community for the last 12 years. I got Javatinis, that's my coffee shop on the corner there. I love this community. I think there's so much that this community has to offer. I've been involved, I'm the appointee from the Seal Beach Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved with the Chamber of Commerce since the first year I've been here. Served as secretary, treasurer, and president for 2 years. And that just shows how much I do care for this community, and I do want what's best for the whole Seal Beach, including the businesses. And I'm hoping I can offer insight as to what the business community sees in this.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tim Rathman. I'm a local geologist, environmental engineer. I've lived here on and off since 2013. Originally, the family is from Southern California, but I work for a global engineering firm, and we work on coastal projects. I have an office just above Humble Maker Coffee, and I am very passionate about this. We left Seal Beach in 2017, and we fought to get back, and now we're here. And I want to do everything I can to kind of help the city. My son is a sophomore at LaSalle. He started at McGaw, and so we're back, and I'm wanting to make sure I can do everything I can to be involved and help out on the environmental side. I currently live in Old Town with my wife and my son. We walk everywhere. I observe parking. I observe people's behavior on the weekends. So this opportunity, I'm really excited to just be a neutral party and help make a decision.
So I'm Tom Moore, I'm mayor. In addition to mayor, I work full-time as the director of software development for company called Round Bricks, and we manage the Diocese of Orange, so St. Hedwig, Mission San Juan, Christ Cathedral, and all the Catholic schools in Orange County. And I work from home mostly, and I'm on Main Street 2-3 times a week with family, going to breakfast or lunch. And I lived in Seal Beach 27 years, and I think this is a good process. There's a positive, I'd like everyone to keep a positive attitude and just do what's best for the city of Seal Beach. And I think some good things have already come from talking about having a parking committee. One is looking at better signage to direct people towards the paid parking lots, and a few other ideas that I've talked with Julie Dixon about. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate all the time that you're going to spend. Thanks.
If you could please speak in the mic, it is being recorded.
Sounds good, Chief. Ken Husting. I'm a resident of Seal Beach since 2011. I've been coming to Seal Beach since I was a kid. Fondest memories going to go bodyboarding over at near the pier. Frequent visitor. I actually did live at Oakwood Apartments back when it was Oakwood Apartments for quite some time. Moved over to Heron Point over in 2011. I'm currently a principal engineer with the City of Los Angeles. My informal title is parking administrator. So I run the parking for the City of LA, responsible for 109 parking facilities, 36,000 parking meters, revenue of $250 million, including citations. So very familiar with parking meters and the ramifications and what it takes to install or remove them. So I'm looking forward to bringing my expertise. I've known Julie for a long time. We're colleagues. And so look forward to bringing my expertise and experience to the committee. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill McDaniel. I live in College Park East. I moved there moved in College Park East in 1969. So I've lived there with my family since then. Raised 2 daughters that went to LaSalle. And we have through our life, come to Old Town Seal Beach many, many times. We go to the beach, we go to the pier. We are very active shoppers in Seal Beach. And professionally, I have an engineering background. I've done plant designs, which include parking layouts, parking planning for some major corporations.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Kalmick. I'm currently the City Council representative for District 1, which is Old Town. I've been a resident of Old Town Seal Beach for 50 years now, and I also had a small business on Main Street for 40 years. So I'm hoping to bring a little bit of background and input from all of those backgrounds. So thank you.
I'm Margot Wheeler. I live in, what do we call it? It's not Ward, District 5. And so that makes me a resident of Leisure World. So I've only been there a short period of time because I had to, age into it. But I grew up in Pasadena, and Seal Beach was my local beach. I remember driving by the Globe constantly, and downtown was our summer haunt from the 70s. Professionally, I'm a city planner and have worked on downtown plans, which include parking and all of the issues that need to be addressed in order to improve downtowns as the director in cities like Davis, Bellflower, Palm Springs, Monterey Park, and Pasadena as a resident. I'm currently a member of the Planning Commission here and have been on planning commissions in other cities such as Burbank and Flagstaff, Arizona.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, we'll move on to number 2 under committee items, and that's appointment of the chair and vice chair of the committee. So at this time, I'd like to call for nominations for a chair of the committee.
Yeah, I'll nominate Ken Husting.
The nomination for Ken Husting, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Margot Wheeler.
Margot Wheeler, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair for the committee? Hearing none, then we'll move to a vote. This will be for voting members only. Madam Clerk, could you please take the vote?
Committee Member Terry, how do you vote for, I'm sorry, let me just start over. I am asking for votes for Committee Member Husting. Committee Member Terry, how do you vote?
No.
Committee Member Jenkins, how do you vote for Committee Member Husting?
So, excuse me, I'm trying to ask what the process is. So we vote yes or no for Ken, and then yes or no for Margot?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. I know I vote, I guess I vote no for Ken. I'll back Margot.
Committee Member Rathman, how do you vote for Committee Member Husting? I'm sorry.
I vote yes for Ken.
And Mayor Moore, how do you vote?
Yes.
Committee Member McDaniel, how do you vote for Committee Member Husting?
Yes.
Councilmember Kalmick, how do you vote?
No.
Committee Member Wheeler, how do you vote?
No.
So we have 4 votes no and 3 votes yes. Did I
Ken.
miss someone? Oh, how do you vote for yourself, Mr. Husting?
Actually, I'd be fine if both of us kind of abstain from voting for ourselves,
Okay.
assuming that Margot's okay with that.
Okay. So we have 4 no's and 3 yes for Mr. Husting. Now I would take votes for Committee Member Wheeler. Committee Member Terry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Committee Member Janke, how do you vote?
Yes. Yes.
Committee Member Rathman, how do you vote?
No.
Mayor Moore, how do you vote?
No.
Committee Member McDaniel, how do you vote?
No.
Councilmember Kalmick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Did I miss someone?
So
And Committee Member Margot cannot vote for it. She's not voting for herself. So I should have I have 3 noes and 3 yes. Apparently I missed someone.
Yeah, I don't know if I get to vote on her, if we're both abstaining from this.
That was your suggestion, so I went along with it.
So in the
We
previous,
abstained both times.
yeah, the previous
3-3
votes
on both of them.
should be a vote.
So what do we do in a 3-3?
You know, what,
We have to go around again and ask for the votes.
I'm willing to go ahead and, if she wants to be chair, I'm okay with that.
Does that work for you, Committee Member Wheeler?
Sure.
Okay. So the chairperson for the ad hoc committee is Committee Member Wheeler.
And with that, since Committee Member Husting has made the suggestion, is there a consensus amongst the committee to make Committee Member Husting the co-chair?
Yes.
The vice chair, excuse me. Is there a consensus? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So is that acceptable, clerk?
That is acceptable. Thank you.
Clear, that's vice chair, not co-chair.
Excuse me, vice chair, correct.
Do they get along?
I don't know her.
We'll figure that out.
No sharp objects.
All right. With that, then I'll turn the meeting over to the chair, Committee Member Chair Wheeler, and the meeting is yours.
Thank you. We'll go on now with the presentation, background of parking in Seal Beach fundamentals. I assume that our consultant, Ms. Dixon, will be handling this?
Yes,
Very good, thank you.
Matthew, I'm gonna borrow your mic if that's okay. So I think my voice projects, but hopefully this will help. So in the folder, we have a slide where the red arrow is. So we had a slide deck printed, and I don't know if it's gonna be up on the screen or not for the audience. So I will walk through every line that we have here for the parking timeline. There are a couple of dates. We've been actually doing a lot of research on the background of parking meters on Main Street. And so right now on the handouts that we have, it starts with 2002, but I'm actually going to go back in time only because we have done a lot of digging in Seal Beach archives. We actually had parking meters on Main Street in 1963. They were removed in 1976. So those were the 2 dates that were not listed in this document. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody had that. It's definitely taken a lot of research to go back and pull some of that information. So I appreciate everyone's understanding of not having this in the handout. In 2002, the Main Street parking lot rates were approved at $1 an hour. And then in 2003, another date that is not on here was actually when Coastal Commission approved parking meters to be installed in and around Main Street. And what was important about that date was that there was a 5-year term associated with that approval. And basically, the city never proceeded with the installation. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that there was a term on that approval, and parking meters were never reinstalled on Main Street associated with that Coastal Commission approval. So then coming back to the handout and the dates that you have in front of you, in 2016, the parking lot beach rates were increased from $6 daily max to $10 daily max. And that's also when the city council had approved funding of $600,000 to update the parking equipment and technology throughout the city. And that would include all of the technology from citation technology to also the paid parking infrastructure. In 2017, that's when the Dixon team came on board in June. And many of you that have lived here for a bit might recall we ran several parking technology pilots, including the different types of parking meters and pay stations, and ultimately ran a competitive process where the technology that you now have today was ultimately selected. That's also the time that the police department's parking enforcement technology was upgraded. And before that year, the parking enforcement officers were still writing paper tickets. And now we basically implemented more of an automated system so that parking tickets were basically still paper on your windshield, but you could pay electronically. And there was basically a more automated process that went along with that. And many of you might recall that's when we started having our community town hall meetings in this very location. And in 2017 and again in 2018, we hosted several meetings in this room so that we could hear the concerns and feedback from the community members, and took on a number of those initiatives. And throughout this entire process, frequent returns to City Council with updates, progress made, and also seeking approval, because in 2018, that's where you'll have seen the launch of the new pay stations in the beach lots. It's also where we had our first iteration of the updated signage. We implemented mobile payment, and that's also where we began to use license plate recognition technology, or what you'll always hear us call LPR technology. That was also an important transition for the police department, because we transitioned from the right-sided Jeeps where they used to drive along with the chalk sticks and started to leverage the license plate recognition technology to again become more efficient, especially throughout the city. We also did our first update on the municipal code. At the time, we called it future-proofing the code. There were quite a few outdated regulations on the books, and we basically brought the code up to speed. And that also included some of the changes regarding oversized vehicle parking in Seal Beach, as well as some of the regulations associated with the beach lots. This was also a time that we solicited parking management support services. And many of you may already know this, but we actually contract with the city of Long Beach that provides the meter maintenance and support services associated with our parking technology. And that's actually proven to be a significant cost savings for the city of Seal Beach by using a neighboring city. And that was a real win for the parking program. We also leveraged new parking enforcement vehicles that year, and that was the first initiation of our automated parking permit system. It started in our beach parking locations, specifically on 10th Street Beach Lot, where the boat launch permits were implemented and basically became more of a self-managed permit program. And again, the ongoing community meetings. Moving into 2019, we were able to introduce another significant cost savings to the parking program, where we established an agreement between the City of Seal Beach and Farmers and Merchant Bank, where they actually count and reconcile the parking meter monies. And this also provided a substantial cost savings to the city, as well as minimizing staff time, as city staff used to count and collect all of the parking meter monies. That year, we continued our town hall meetings, and we also introduced an online parking survey to gather additional feedback and comments from the community. We came back with another municipal code update with some additional enhancements to just fine-tune the code. And this was also based on the data that was being collected on Main Street. We introduced the sign riders that you see on Main Street, which was basically the no reparking regulation, where you have to move your car 150 feet after you've parked for the posted time limits. Many of you might recall we also installed the car stop bumpers in the beach lots. That was another method to get out of the oversized vehicles that were parking in the beach lots as well, to again just really improve access and accessibility in those locations. We also expanded the signage and parking restrictions to not only the library but also to the parking lots, so that way we also had parking availability and turnover in those locations. We also worked with the police department to update the parking standard operating procedures and policies and procedures document. And that was also the year that the City of Seal Beach received the Parking Today Technical Innovation Award. And that was really something that was very unique, because Seal Beach was the first West Coast city to have a fully integrated end-to-end parking management system, so that the parking enforcement officers could, again, as efficiently as possible, monitor the streets to ultimately enforcing and seeking compliance of those violations. And that was something that was, again, an industry recognition. Then the pandemic happened, And in August of 2020, the parklets were installed in and around Main Street. And we all hopefully can appreciate that the residential parking permit program renewal was delayed that year as we basically tried to figure out how we were going to navigate the pandemic. And then in December of that year, we had the launch of the online virtual parking permit system. And by 2021, we had transitioned fully to the virtual parking permits. And this is an important number to highlight, is the fact that in Seal Beach now, all of our parking permits, whether it be senior passes, beach passes, contractor, merchant permits, boat launch permits, everything is now done online, and that provided a significant relief to staff. Many of you might recall having to wait in line come October at the finance department to try to purchase your parking permits, and now everything is done online through that service. We also implemented the parking permit at sealbeachca.gov email address so that anybody that had questions through that transition process, and people still email that location today. In 2021, we also introduced the head-in parking regulations in the beach lots, and that was also the year that we applied for the Southern California Association of Governments, also known as SCAG. We applied for a grant to introduce micro shuttles, which are those smaller golf carts to really navigate around the community. And then in 2022, all of the permits that I described have been managed now online. And we have a company by the name of Data Ticket. They provide the citation and permit management services on behalf of the city and basically provide the customer service support in coordination with the police department. I should also mention through the pandemic, all of the parking management support services were transitioned to the police department. And while pretty much every department in the city has a hand in parking in some way, shape, or form, ultimately parking is managed through the police department. And at which time, before he became chief, even Chief Henderson helped manage the parking program as well. So, and then in early 2023, just in February of this year, not only were the single space parking meters replaced in the Main Street parking lots by the pay-by-plate technology with the introduction also of pay-by-text, the parklets were removed from Main Street by February 1st. And there's probably a lot more detail, but we wanted to be sure that everybody had a good handle on just kind of how we got to be where we are today. And because I do touch parking programs all across the country, I will tell you that being able to watch the improvements, especially when we talk about customer access, and many of you have heard me talk about data, we have been leveraging the license plate recognition technology to capture the occupancy data basically in and around Old Town, so that we've been managing and monitoring the occupancy and have shared some of that data in the workbooks, including the parklet data that you spoke of before the meeting, and that's in one of the tabs here at the end of the document, and we're happy to go through that data at which time that it's appropriate.
I have a question. It's my understanding, I guess I should have come here with more specifics, but I thought at one time there were meters on Main Street years ago.
So in 1963, there were parking meters installed on Main Street, and they were removed in 1976. And then what we found was that we had approval through Coastal Commission in 2003, and there was a moratorium or timeline associated with that. And from everything that we can identify, meters were never installed again on Main Street since they were removed in 1976. But that's something that I'm obviously open to having feedback.
As to why they were here and why they're not.
So I actually just today, we found some of the original records, and I'll be happy to work with the chair to provide those links, because we found all of the resolutions and all of the previous staff reports, and we actually were able to find all of those today. So I'll be happy to follow up in coordination to make sure that the committee has that information as well. So
That'd be really good.
There's an editorial in the Sun, somebody said that the meters were installed to pay for the beach parking program. And once they had enough money to pay for the beach parking, then they took the meters out. Is there any truth of that, you know?
So from everything that I've read thus far for the meters that were installed on Main Street, I haven't identified that answer yet, but I will come back to the committee because we literally pulled that this morning and there's many, many pages of dialogue associated with that. So I'll definitely be happy to share those links. And I would have appreciated being able to have it here today, but when I tell you we've been digging and digging, I actually have to thank the city manager because she gave us a word to go and search through the archives, and that actually turned into Pandora's box. So that's why the dates that I mentioned that weren't on this list, we've continued to dig and dig and dig, because we are also, I should mention, working on a coastal application to increase the beach lot rates. Because the beach lot rates haven't been increased since 2016, that's something that we want to be sure that we're pursuing as well. And the fact that the previous city council meetings were at the low end of the threshold on beach lot rates. So we've been trying to dig for as much coastal background as we possibly can so that we can fortify that coastal application. Thank you.
Are you going to go over any of the other materials?
I'd be happy to.
Also, if you could very briefly, I think the question has come up, if you could give your experience and how you came on board to support this commission. I think for this group and certainly those listening, that'd be helpful.
Sure. So from a background perspective, I mentioned that in 2016, the council had approved funding to basically replace all of the equipment citywide. And a vendor had come in and basically presented a turnkey system to the city. And I think that at the time, the staff that had done the vetting of it, basically I was approached at a parking conference that same year and was asked a lot of questions because one of your vendors at the time in the city thought that the city was going down maybe a wrong path. And so that vendor said, hey, will you talk to the city of Seal Beach about what they're doing? And when I identified the vendor that they were trying to sign up with, that turned into the whole conversation of us coming in and almost kind of coaching the city about the direction. And I'm really proud to say that that $600,000 allocation at the time, I don't even think that we ended up spending half of it when we were said and done with the project. And so basically over the last several years, one of the names that I have is a parking coach. And so what we've done over the last several years is really coming in and trying to really help the city optimize the program and try to bring as much efficiency as possible, especially with that focus on the customer experience, and whether it be community members, residents, or visitors. And that's really where, when you talk about running the parking program like a business, some of the things that we've been able to do is eliminate maybe some of the historical contract agreements that weren't necessarily in the city's best interest, and really looked at ways that we could leverage the agreements collectively over the years. And so that's also been some of the incremental changes, because that's something that's really important when you talk about parking management. It's important to recognize you can't just jump into the deep end of the pool overnight and expect everybody to change their behavior. And so what you've really seen over this last many years is those incremental changes so that you can stop and measure and understand what the impact is. And that's really how we came to be where we are today, is that over the progression of policy recommendations, changes, and monitoring utilization and occupancy is how we've gotten to the place that we are today. And that's something that I'm actually particularly proud of, is being able to see the evolution of parking in Seal Beach, and the fact that while the police department has many other priorities much more significant than parking, that we've been able to make the program as efficient as possible so that they can manage the program while obviously still prioritizing public safety in Seal Beach.
Thank you. And your firm?
So Dixon Resources Unlimited. So just the elevator pitch on Julie Dixon, I was the very first parking enforcement officer for the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department back when I was at school at UC Santa Barbara. If anybody knows UCSB, Isla Vista is the college town adjacent to it, and it's the most densely populated 1 square mile west of the Mississippi still to this day. And about 33 years ago, I was a CSO on campus, and my police lieutenant said, hey, I got a job for you over at the Sheriff's Department. They handed me a ticket book and a bike. And I always tell people that who would have thought 30 plus years later that now I'd just be dealing with the same thing, just fancy terms like congestion mitigation and curb management. And the reality is, over the many years, I've worked many, many locations. It's actually why I know Ken. I started working with the City of Los Angeles DOT in 1998 on many projects since then. And I started my firm as a result of that book that you saw Councilmember Steele with, Donald Shoup. There was a project called SF Park. SF Park was the first federally funded program that focused on congestion mitigation for on and off street parking. I always tell people it started as a $20 million federal grant through matching monies. It became a $53 million Petri dish. If you had a widget, if you had a parking gadget or a gizmo that you thought could help optimize parking, you basically had to go through me to work in San Francisco. And the concept of SF Park was really to prove Shoup's theories. And when all was said and done, I was done with that project, Monday gray hairs, and it was the city of Seal Beach that came to me and said, Julie, I'd like to hire you. The company I worked for said Newport Beach, you're too small. And the Newport Beach revenue manager said, Julie, if you had your own business, I hire you tomorrow. And so October of 2012 is when I started my business. My goal was to help cities just like Seal Beach make their parking programs easy, convenient, and accessible. And so just last year, we celebrated our 10th anniversary, and we work with programs just like yours. And as I describe myself as the parking coach, I'm also called a parking realist, because the fact is that while all the theories are great and good, you also have to talk about the impacts on behavior, on communities, and that there is no cookie cutter solution for any one community. And just like the timeline that I shared with you here today, that is the timeline specific to Seal Beach. Because what happens here in Seal Beach is not something that you can replicate anywhere else, because this is what worked in Seal Beach. We work at the path and the schedule that works for those communities, and that's what's really important about the fact that today's committee meeting is not the last time, and everybody's heard me say this, that we'll talk about parking, because parking is an important process, especially in your community. It touches everybody that lives here, whether you have a car or not, and that's an important part of this priority, and honestly, why we're here as a committee.
Okay, thank you. And then tell us about what we have here.
Sure. So there's a lot of little bullets here with the tabs. You have a copy of the municipal code in the first tab. And then when you get to what is the second blue tab, at least in my book it's blue, forgive me. So I'll just say the third tab in, you'll see a map that looks like this. And this is the tab that basically has the color-coded maps for the LPR data. And what you're going to see that the month that is included here is for the month of August. By time of day and by color, you can actually see what the average occupancy is by block face for those highlighted areas. And it's important to recognize that when you talk about the parking theory, when you start to see yellow, it means that you're nearing that 85% occupancy. And when you're at 85%, the parking theory is that you're near or at capacity. And the ideal is that you're always going to have 1 or 2 parking spaces available by block face, so that there's always that ability to just kind of pull in, occupy the space, and go about your business. And that's really important when we talk about turnover, is that you really want to make sure when you're trying to talk about emissions and leveling out the impact on the environment, you really are looking for making sure that you're staying just below that 85% occupancy. When you hit 85%, the theory is that you need to start making parking management changes. And so when I shared with you that we implemented the sign riders with the no reparking regulations, that was one of those next steps in terms of policy. We've constantly been trying to implement different changes to be able to demonstrate those impacts when we talk about the different times of day. And this is something that when you start to go through this information, you'll be able to gather. The next tab is actually the comparison of when you get into the individual block faces, and you'll see the occupancy numbers for peak times by block face, by time of day. And also, as you run through this data, you'll see it by year as well, so that you'll actually be able to see the comparisons of what your occupancy is by block face, not only by block face, but also by year. And it's important to recognize that we have this information basically going back to June of 2020. So we definitely have several years of data to leverage when we get into this information. And then before I go on, there is the second to the last tab is the occupancy data, just in summary, this was one of the bits of data that we utilized in council, that the question about post-parklet occupancy numbers. And you can see by year, and you see Main Street and Main Street adjacent, and these were the occupancy numbers for 2021, 2022, and 2023, so that you have that information available to you so that you can definitely see what those numbers look like. And on the very last tab, which is one of the reasons why we're here today, this was the concept of if paid parking was considered on Main Street and Main Street adjacent, these were the highlighted areas for consideration. And where you see, maybe you can't really see the green much, but you can see the arrows. There was also the suggestion of identifying active loading and unloading zones. One was going to be by the theater as a proposed area, and then the other one was pier adjacent, so that it would make it easier not only for pickup and drop off, but also for those folks who, again, just are trying to get closer to the beach, drop off, and then go find a more remote parking location. But that is the information that you have in front of you. And I don't know, Chief, if you wanted to mention anything about the cost recovery schedule and the data that was included in here as well.
Yeah, the cost recovery schedule has been included just for your reference. If there are questions about finances, we can come back at a later meeting and speak to those questions.
Okay, any questions from the committee on this background portion? Okay, then
I'd like to make some comments, though. I got the privilege to visiting and giving a little parking 101 demonstration by Julie and the police force here on Monday. And it's an incredible amount of data that they collected. I don't think the public really realizes the amount of data and this license plate technology or license plate recognition.
Yep.
Right? I don't know if you've noticed that when the parking enforcement officers coming in, there's cameras and they're actually constantly scanning all license plate, and it's actually very efficient. They've been collecting the data since 2020, and the amount of data they have about certain times a day, times a week, and you can then filter down, and this technology is, to me, I'm a big data person, and it's actually incredible. What I can see is more data to dig into, trends, outliers, because there's certain things like the partlet that cause a little bit of different of the data skew. There's information that when it rained so much the past year, that caused a little bit of parking, recognition, change in the data. But I find it kind of impressive that the amount of effort that's been put into this as a data guy and an observer of the community. So I'd like to compliment and commend the efforts so far. That there is an incredible amount of technology that's put into this, and it's our as a committee, it's our kind of role is to dig into that and see these trends. See, I witness multiple times on the weekend when people park and they go to the beach and they stay there for hours on end, and they come back and they don't do any shopping. I walk around a lot and I observe from the office up there. So there's a bit of trends that we dig into. So I think it's incredible thus far where we got to. So the data supports, the data collected supports why we're here.
So just speaking to the data, Julie, when I was going through the online portal, I noticed that it was only last few months of data that was available. Has that changed since?
It should be the data all back through 2020. So
I actually didn't see that.
I'll definitely spend some time to make sure.
Check.
Yeah, because you should be able to have access, and I'll look to Matthew and see.
Oh, well, it might be what I've noticed when I was using it just recently with the latest update. There's a filter on it that basically says like the last 3 months. And so you might have to change that to last 3 years, and then it'll.
I did, but it didn't do it. But I might have right when I first
Play
got
around
it.
with it. The mayor made a really great suggestion on navigating the data, and so that's been implemented, by the way, Mayor, just so you know. But we'll go in there and take a look at it.
I'll take a look at it tonight.
Great.
Yeah.
One of my concerns is the pandemic. It definitely affected parking. So, in my view, the pandemic ended mid-2022. So the data we're looking at really is only the past year.
I was thinking the same thing.
and especially, and then with the parklets as well. So you have the parklets, the pandemic, and I was hoping we'd see 2018, 2019, so we could see data kind of before things slowed down versus now, but we don't have the comparison really.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that data, the historical side of it. And so moving forward, that's where the second to the last tab, you'll see just in summary from February to August, we have the 21, 22, and 23 data so that you can see also the climb of utilization since the parklets have been removed. And again, no surprise that, come the summer months, that we're definitely right there in those higher averages as well. Go ahead.
So when I was looking at the online portal, I noticed that we had data on the First Street lot and then the 2 beach lots, but we didn't have any on the 100 block lot or the 2 lots on Electric. Is that not getting collected?
I'll just do this so I can be heard. Great question. And it has to do with the layout of the Main Street lot. So what we're actually going to be introducing, and that's another layer that will come onto the online tool, and we'll be sure to present that, is we're leveraging the payment data in those locations to aggregate the occupancy. And as you can appreciate, everyone on the Main Street lots, they're a very unique shape. So when the LPR vehicles go down the street, it's very much a parallel, even the angle parking. And so it's something that we can aggregate the payment data for those locations and be able to demonstrate through payment and compliance basically what the utilization is. And I'll make a note of that to be sure to bring that information. We're also excited about some technology that the police department's going to be launching in the beach lots. That'll also help us better capture the occupancy and utilization there. You can imagine the density, especially on a busy beach weekend, when our parking enforcement officers try to go into the beach lots with the LPR. There's cars, bikes, people everywhere. So we're also looking to leverage the aggregate of payment data as well as permit data, in addition to the technology that we're going to soon see from the police department as well. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think when I come down to Main Street, I can't find parking. I'll just go into one of the paid lots and I find a spot. So it'd be helpful to see the data on how full the paid lots are, in combination with the Main Street.
We'll do that.
And then Julie had questions about the turnover, the collection information that was on the LPR. Should I reach out to you or Cameron?
You sent me the note, and so just so everybody knows, my data person on the team is named Cameron. So you can drop a note to either one of us. And in fact, we have an email address. It's SB, say Seal Beach, at Dixon Resources Unlimited. If you send it to that as well, you get all of us. So
okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, let's continue with the agenda. Community outreach plan for Main Street paid parking consideration. Is this, who's this?
Sure.
Okay.
So we are prepared to be able to distribute a community survey that allows for the person that basically signs up to fill out the survey. You can identify whether or not you're a resident. If you are a resident where you live, you go down a different path of questions, whether or not you're an employee, a business owner, a property owner, or simply a visitor/customer. And so we actually have a very early draft of that survey and are also prepared to share that with the committee for review and can bring that forward and to the chairperson. We can share that with you if you would like and then distribute that for review. We've leveraged surveys that we've used in other communities, and then we can make sure that we feel like we're asking all the right questions. And it's basically, it's helpful to understand where merchants, property owners, and employees are parking, especially when we talk about a program like this. It's not really necessarily that do you support paid parking or no. I mean, most people you're going to ask, I don't really want to pay for anything. I'd like everything in life to be free. But the thing that we really need to know is if you are driving, where are you parking today? Because we really can help us really fine tune in on what those recommendations should be. And then especially oftentimes the solution can be needing to find a more permanent location for employees to be able to park. So that's some of those when we talk about there's no cookie cutter solutions, but we definitely can present that survey draft. There's opportunities to be able to go out, we call them knock and talk surveys too, where you go into the individual businesses to make sure that you are talking to the frontline staff, because often they're the ones that are minimum wage employees in some cases, and that are often the ones that are out there, jockeying the 150-foot rule. So that also helps just to really get the messaging out there. And so the recommendation would be to be able to do a comprehensive survey like that as a possibility if that was something the committee was so interested in, and then to just really make sure that we get that engagement through the various business associations and to make sure that we're really touching everyone, because you really want to make sure that you're hearing from all so that nothing comes as a surprise based on whatever decisions you all make.
So that's ready for the committee to be able to take a look at?
Yep.
And then how long is it out? How long to?
So it, again, based on committee feedback, based on the fact that we're now post-summer, let's just say based on review, approval, et cetera, let's just say we could post the survey by October 1st, being realistic and getting it posted and everything, through all the checks and balances. I would say that typically a survey like that you would have posted for 3 to 4 weeks. But I would also suggest that needs to have a proactive marketing campaign that goes along with it too. And that's where being able to go out, kind of feet on the street, leveraging our business owners to help get the word out there. And so based on the responsiveness and making sure that it's in the newspaper and such, you can also gauge if you need to extend the survey or not. So you really kind of look at the volume and the numbers to see what you need, and making sure that we got a really solid representation. But ultimately 3 to 4 weeks is about average, as long as you have a really proactive outreach and marketing campaign. We've also talked about the possibility of a community town hall meeting as well, and tying that in with the survey being released. That would also be conducive to be able to do that maybe mid-month in October, if the committee was so inclined, to just really bring the community back together. We haven't had one of those types of parking meetings since before the pandemic. They were very popular, and that could also be another good way to get folks to respond to the survey. Just in display of the number of community members that are here tonight, I would anticipate we would have many, many more if we had that kind of open forum as well. And then basically conclude back with the recommendations or the findings of the survey and the town hall, and then being able to bring that back by mid-November, I would say, would probably be a realistic time frame if you close the survey after 3 or 4 weeks. So,
And how do we, well, 2 questions. One, so the same person can be a resident, a merchant, an employee, and a patron, all of that?
Absolutely.
So how does that work? And then secondly, you identify who you are, so somebody isn't grabbing 12 and...
So, the reality of stuffing the ballot box, that's, that happens obviously, but the reality of you're really looking to the community member or the respondent to identify the most impact for them. And because we're really talking about Main Street, my hope would be that they would wear the hat of a business owner or an employee, because that's really the effectiveness of what we're trying to get towards. But ultimately, if they want to fill out the survey for all 4 hats that they wear, that could happen. But I would say too, it's really the result of what the stats come back with. So,
Yeah, on behalf of the chamber, I know we'd be more than happy to help support you in however we can.
Love it.
We tend to have a very responsive community here, so I don't really anticipate a problem.
Sounds great.
As a matter of fact, Julia, going to the point that Margot brought up, we know parking is very personal. People that feel very strongly are going to fill out numerous surveys for their opinion. And so that is a concern that we won't necessarily get an accurate survey of the community. And so I do like the offering of the Chamber of Commerce to where maybe they could have a little bit more focused approach on the businesses on Main Street, so we do get an accurate representation of that.
You can always ask them to list their name and email address and contact information. I will say that in experience, some folks appreciate the anonymity of being able to provide their feedback, but I would leave that again to the committee to decide what works best for Seal Beach. But I do think there's an opportunity I mean, you always have to worry about stuffing the ballot box, don't get me wrong, but the thing I will also tell you is you can really see that in the back end when you're doing the analytics on it too, and you can identify any of those anomalies. But I do think you have an opportunity to request contact information as well. They can always check the box that says, I don't want to hear from you, if that's the case. But I do think there's several ways that you can do it to make sure that you get that responsiveness and accountability as well.
I would think an email confirmation of your input would not be an unreasonable request.
Okay.
At least just a common sense approach to it, I think.
I think
But
that's-
I totally get it. We don't want this thing totally skewed one way or another because somebody is playing games.
Right. I will share that we just finished a survey in the city of Pasadena, and we had over 5,000 responses. It was a citywide survey, and I will also tell you that we had a write-in spot, and every single person that responded wrote a paragraph when you talk about it. So I just want to highlight that's you got to navigate all 5,000 of those for that matter. So that was a fun process. But I do think that as we work through the survey, there's ways to be able to have a level of accountability, the kind of the I'm not a robot type of thing, but also being able to make sure that we have that ability to identify.
And maybe an option, if they are a business on Main Street, what business?
Yep.
The business name and then the address.
Great.
Got a question over here?
Julie, I would just ask a question that is undoubtedly jumping the gun, but because it's been brought up so many times in so many ways by people who are concerned that I don't want to pay for parking if I want to just run in and pick up takeout or go to the post office or do something that's going to take them 5 to 15 minutes, to maybe give a slight overview of the capabilities of the pay stations as to what we can ask them to do for us.
Thank you for asking that question. This is some of the nice benefits of us having talked about this for as long as we have, is that there's been a lot of updates to the technology and a lot of capabilities. First and foremost, many of you have probably noticed on Main Street, we have several short-term parking spaces. You have the opportunity to retain those. In fact, I would encourage you to retain those because what you always want to have is that ability to run in, pick up your coffee, pick up your dry cleaning, pick up a delivery from a shop. So that ability to make sure that each block face has at least one and or two of those short-term parking spaces. But the technology that you use, there's several methods that you can use where there's actually an opportunity to initiate a free parking session for, say it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever that time frame is. And the neat thing about that technology is not only can you do it at the pay station itself, but you also, if you utilize the phone device for the mobile or the text, you can actually initiate that session. Now, mind you, you can't feed the meter. You can't sit there and just keep punching 20, 20, 20, 20 all day. You set up business rules so that you're basically eligible for that one free session or whatever the case may be per day. And the other thing that we've talked about in the past is that as a result of the technology and as a result of just different parking policies, we have the opportunity to consider peak season rate structures versus off-peak season rate structures. And you also have the opportunity to push out benefits to residents, where if you sign up for the mobile app, for example, you could have an hour or two of parking free per month or whatever the rule is. And I think that that's some of the nice benefits that when we really get into the statistics and the number of people that are utilizing mobile today, that's a really big audience that you can capture utilizing the app as well. But we also have to be cognizant of some of your community members that don't necessarily use their phone or don't necessarily have credit cards. And the nice thing about that touch the button on the equipment is that everything that we do in the city is based on license plate. You can initiate that free time with your license plate. And again, easy peasy, go do your business and go about it. So there's some nice things there. And when we've also talked about the solutioning on Main Street, there's been a lot of feedback from some of the business owners who say, listen, we just can't service our customers in 2 hours. And so the opportunity through some of the proposed modeling is to be able to have an extended time option so that you can actually pay for that benefit of staying a little bit longer. And that's something that's worked out really effectively from a parking management solution. Not everybody needs that, but that could be something that accommodates, certain businesses that need that. And that can be something too that the committee talks about is maybe that's a rule that only applies in the Main Street lots, for example. And maybe on Main Street, the time limit is still 2 hours. But those are the kind of details that when we get into the weeds of the program, you've really got, a kind of a blank slate of paper in front of you.
So the one thing I want to point out is when you talk about free parking and having to use a device, and I know this happened, I think it was Paso Robles, a lot of people forgot to use the device or they didn't use the device, and then they'd get a parking citation. So it's a matter of whether or not they actually go through using the mobile app or going to the base station, doing that to take advantage of it.
Yep, and if we have the free 20-minute spaces, they won't have to touch
Yeah,
anything, which
exactly.
that makes it even easier and cleaner. It's just the nice part about the being able to park anywhere on the block face and being able to initiate it. It's been something too that honestly, the folks that take the most advantage of that service is our community members and residents. And I will say this, especially for Paso Robles, the community members leverage it. It's really the visitors and tourists that because in Paso Robles initiated something they call the customer service parking model, where you get 2 hours for free, but you have to register your license plate. So that's something that's not accustomed to most community members where you park because you're accustomed to there being a parking meter, put my money in, I'm good to go. And so that was a retraining of how to operate that parking system was to get your 2 hours free, you had to initiate your session. So, and that was something that the community understood. It was the visitors that had to figure that out.
So my question is the purpose of this survey to come up with the policy or to present a policy and see what the feedback is?
You tell me, because that's the,
'Cause that's a big difference.
It is a big difference. I mean, there's a lot of times when we get to this stage of the process, it's really about understanding the needs of the primary users, and that being the employees, the business owners, and the property owners, because usually they're the ones that are the most challenged by parking in those locations. And so oftentimes the focus is that, but we also want to make sure everybody has a chance to have their say. But understanding where they're parking, how long they're parking for, what their parking needs are, that's typically the intent, so that when we have the bigger conversation of what the policies should be associated with paid parking, we can come up with that solution for this targeted group that we know are going to be impacted by whatever decision is made and whatever recommendations are made.
Because, for example, I could see, in addition to the employees and the business owners, is the spillover of people wanting to not pay for parking going over. Well, here you have to go over at least, 1 or 2 blocks over, and then filling up those areas, which then the residents will have a much more difficult time finding a spot.
Absolutely, it's
What's happening?
That's already happening.
Yeah.
Right, you have the residents immediately adjacent to the downtown area, but then you have the other residents of Seal Beach, the discouraged, who will tell you, well, I don't go to downtown Seal Beach because I can't find a place to park. And those are the ones that go to Rossmore and elsewhere. And I mean, I think that we do need to see if we might be able to include them in the survey, because those other Seal Beach residents are the ones that we want to be able to have access to and be patrons of the businesses in downtown.
I do want to highlight another reason why we have collected data beyond Main Street is for the exact reasoning that you're describing. So spillover parking is the term, and it's the official term. And so, good call. And so we always call the squeeze the balloon theory, right? When you squeeze the balloon, they're going to pop up, all over the place. So we want to be ready to understand what the occupancy impacts are on those side streets, so that we can also look at what kind of, potential in the future that we have to address when it comes to that. The reality in peak season right now, as he mentioned, is that you already have folks that are storing their cars there to go to the beach because you have such a walkable community. And the reality of them, if I have to we were talking about this before, I'll eat the parking ticket because that's my fee to go to the beach for the day if I get a parking ticket. So that's oftentimes, in some cases, what some community members or visitors will do, unfortunately. Yeah.
For the survey, is there any way we can get feedback and engagement from the people parking on Main Street?
It's difficult, but you can go old school. Oh, sorry. You can go old school where you got the person out there with the clipboard or the phone, surveying and interviewing folks. So there's opportunities to ask people kind of that, how was your experience type of methodology. But I will say the sampling is really for those people that choose to respond. But having ambassadors kind of walking up and down Main Street, I will say have experimented and tried all of those factors, but it is something that can be done. I don't know necessarily if it's a representative sample because Main Street is as long as it is and parking on both sides. And when it is busy, I don't know that you're going to capture everyone, but I mean, there's definitely an opportunity.
I like that idea because that's the people those are our users, those are the people that are using the parking spots. So.
Yep, field surveys.
Okay, so am I reading this correctly, and did I hear you correctly, that there is a draft of the survey available?
I have a draft and I will
Okay, so
follow up and send
I
that.
would guess that the committee members would like to have that, so we take a look at that. And then the idea being that we bring those comments back, and then I look at the next item here that says meeting schedule and format. So if I'm following down the path here, we get the survey, we take a look at that, and then we come back together with comments. Right? Okay, so then that brings us to, and when to meet again. So this was, this is the second Wednesday at 4 o'clock is what was selected. Julie, I heard, trying to make notes on my little tiny pad here that the police department so kindly gave us, these little notepads here. So I was hearing stuff about mid-October, but I guess you probably want something before then, so that would be what, a week or two? Is that what we're thinking?
I can share the draft.
Okay.
And I'll coordinate through staff to get it to the committee, and I can have that out in inboxes by tomorrow to
Okay.
staff. And then I think that if we wanted to be timely, and especially before you hit the holiday shopping season in particular.
Okay.
I think for Seal Beach, October would be an ideal month to be able to run the survey so that, you can take advantage of maybe a little bit of a downtime. I don't know that there's a lot of downtime in Seal Beach, but that might be ideal. But I'll defer to you all on your committee schedule.
So I just want to throw it out there. I know we'll be at a conference next week, and then I'll be around a brief time towards the end of September, and then I'm gone European vacation, pre-planned, before I ever knew about this committee. So I will actually be back October 16th. So if we could meet September 25th, 26th, or 27th, and then after that, if we could, I'm just throwing it out there. If meeting happens without me, that, so.
Right, I think probably around the 2-week range. And I assume if one of us is out of town, we can Zoom in?
So, Madam Chair, if I may, there is an option for Zoom for these meetings. I'd recommend then that'd be a hybrid meeting of in-person and Zoom for those who may need to do that.
I'll see how that works in Spain.
Right, that's a little harder, I'm not as far away, but, okay, so is Wednesday a night that people like, or
When is,
Yeah, that's good.
just because today is Wednesday?
what is the date?
27, that's what I'm looking at here. I'm gone that whole week, so I'll be Zooming wherever we do.
Additionally, if I may, there is a town hall in Leisure World that'll be covering a number of different topics to include things that are affecting Leisure World, but parking is one of the topics, and I'll be a member of that panel, and I believe Julie Dixon will be a member of that panel as well.
That's the 27th,
That is
right?
September 27th.
What about the 26th? That's a Tuesday?
Tuesdays are no good for me, but I could
Is-
probably, they're no good. Tuesdays are no good, but I can zoom in possibly. So.
Okay. Wednesdays are my worst.
Let's see. Wednesdays are usually good for me. Thursdays, I've got Orange County Fire Authority and SCAG. So,
And all Tuesdays don't work well for you?
Usually I can work around it though if I, yeah.
Can we do it after the town hall, chief? Or-
Well, but then that brings us, oh no, we have a Thursday. We don't want to be Friday, but we have,
He's saying the 27th.
that would be the 28th, Thursday, the 28th.
I think he's saying the day of.
The day of the
hall.
town hall, since they'll be here anyway. That might work for the
Oh,
consultant.
is that what
Like
you're
in
saying?
the-
I don't
Okay.
see why not.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's earlier in the day?
it would have to be.
Okay.
So you do an afternoon or evening meeting then for the committee?
Yeah, well, I have to leave here to get to Irvine by 5.
We're on a Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Oh, we're on
Yeah, we
Wednesday.
went back to Wednesday.
Good, I'm good Wednesday.
Okay,
Until I look at
so
my
Wednesday, the
calendar.
27th, do we, 4 or 5? What, you guys need a little
It
break,
says
don't you?
5:30 for the town hall to be over, so maybe 6.
6 is good.
Thursday, 6th. So Wednesday, the 27th at 6 PM. And we will have all gotten and prepared our comments on the survey. Okay? And,
So that meeting is for the survey.
yes, and it will be Zoom and in person.
Zoom will be available.
Yeah, because I will have to Zoom.
And
I'll
maybe
be
we
out of
could say
town.
the survey and the outreach plan, so that way,
Yes.
maybe if there's a town hall or any, we could put together the proposed schedule and all of the bells and whistles, like maybe field surveys, chamber,
Okay,
and like. so.
everybody got that? Yes?
I have a question. From a helicopter view, what are we looking at here? What are our goals? Are we
We want to,
planning to be done in 2 months, 6 months, year?
Oh,
What's the? Yeah, I'm just throwing things out.
Right.
I just have no idea.
I mean, I think the ad hoc, I mean, a lot of work has gone on, and we've got the survey to take a look at, and
The goal from the council meeting was to give a recommendation on how the town hall meetings would be conducted, and then look at the parking on Main Street, and provide an opinion to council, and then provide any other ideas, recommendations to improve parking in Seal Beach. So those are kind of the high-level requests from council.
So this year?
Yeah,
Hopefully be
in the
done
next
this
3 or
year.
4 months.
sort of
that-
maybe think in terms of a few months.
I just want to get
It
my
was
head.
three
Like
or
less
4
than
months,
6?
yeah,
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah, in that range.
And Mary, you had mentioned, so we were on topic for council to introduce the application for coastal for the beach lot rates. Maybe if you'd suggested you wanted the committee to look at that, we could bring that also to the 27th meeting. If
Yeah, I think-
that's something you're so inclined towards.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
And so send that out previous so that that makes it a lot easier if we've all read it and we're prepared to discuss the material when it's,
It was also mentioned during our parking meeting about the shuttles.
Yeah,
Maybe
we'll ask for that update too, if Captain Nicholas heard that as well, so.
and then I had a few things like what other lots might be available, like to increase inventory. If that's a discussion item, we could talk about the 8th Street lot or the Bank of America lot, some of the other potential to increase inventory. And then employee parking is there a way to get employees to park in another location maybe? Might as well talk about parking structure. I know it's cost prohibitive, but at least a discussion. And then the public sign, the P signs, to direct people to the paid parking lots. Then I'd like to know how parking in lieu would work, if we did paid parking. That's
So matter of fact, that brings up an interesting thing. One of the speakers actually mentioned something about parking waiver, parking in lieu. Does the city actually have that fund, or had that fund? So,
There is in lieu of parking in Seal Beach, yes.
and what is the balance of that fund?
we could prepare a presentation and come back to you with that information. I don't have it before me right now.
Okay, because I know in the city of LA, whenever somebody pays into that fund, it's to be reinvested for the purpose of parking, or sometimes a little bit more broader as far as transportation. So just like to learn a little bit more about it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Anything else anybody wants
So
to?
what's a parking in lieu fund for?
So essentially, when somebody is not able to comply with their code required parking, they could go ahead and pay the city, whatever the city establishes as the cost to meet their code.
Kinda, yeah.
So they're paying for their parking in
Zoning
lieu.
extortion.
And that has occurred here?
Apparently.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, then let's adjourn to Wednesday, the 27th of September at 6 PM in this room and via Zoom. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.